Okay, so the first step to looking at texture painting is to switch right over to the texture paint window and see what that looks like. So I just have the default cube selected for this. When I switch over, you'll see the color pink. So this is to let us know there is no material, no color on this just yet. So we can't start painting until we have an image to put on right here. Yeah, in Unity it's the same, isn't it? I think it's just loud. It's loud and it's a color you wouldn't usually use. It's easy to pick out. So in order to start painting on this model, we need to create an image texture. We can create a new one over in this image and it's set to paint. Let's create a new image right here. I'll call this box text. And you can set whatever width and height you want, but texturing is usually preferred to be square in size. It seems to read a lot better if you're going between different platforms. And a lot of times your texture painting will usually be in 1-to-1 dimensions. Not a hard and fast rule, but generally keep them square. 1024 and 1024 is fine. I'm going to raise that color to like a gray, somewhere in the middle. And the generated type will be blank. And then just click New Image. And now I've got this gray image. Still can't see it on the model, but that's fine. Now that I have the image of box text, we just need to load it into the diffuse channel or whatever channel we want to paint in our material window, material panel. So get down to my material panel, and you see the box has a material by default called material. I'll call it box matte. And just like loading up textures before, in our base color, I'm going to load in an image texture. That little yellow selector dot. And in the image texture shop slot, I'm looking for box text. Because it's already created within Blender, I don't need to open anything. It'll be in my drop-down list right here, box text. Yep. It should have shown up. And now we're ready to paint. So the 3 steps. 1, open texture paint. 2, is it 3? It might be 4. 2, create a new image. 3, load that into materials. Paint on model. That's all we need to do to get our model ready to start painting. And then our brush controls, we can paint in this window or in this window. Brush controls are the same as for the sculpt mode, where we use F to make the brush bigger. Shift F to change the opacity of that brush. And that's the same controls that are up here, the strength value and the radius value. And then we have our color that we're painting in right now selected. So I can start painting shapes. Yep, on both, so you can see exactly which face you're painting on as you're painting. And quick tip, if you hold control, you paint in black. So any other color you're in. So it's kind of like the smooth tool brush. Probably the secondary color. Well, I'll say probably. Yes, definitely the secondary color. So it's like different colors. It's like different strengths, paint in different opacities. Some of the miniature versions of the Photoshop tools, soften, smear, clone stamp, and fill exist. They fill to paint boundaries. And mask, I can't understand mask at the moment because it's changed. But soften, as you can imagine, blurs things up. There is a way to erase the alpha, but there's no erase to the base color. So we want to erase to alpha, we just change from our mix brush to erase alpha. But it's going to make things now see-through if you erase that. A hole through the mesh. Oh yeah, it'll add alpha again, yeah. Oh, in the base color, it might add it just in white. Good question. Let's erase. Add, yeah, just the base color. Oh, but it's what the original colors were. Yeah. Smear brush, very useful for getting sharper lines on things. Or running colors together. Okay. So we also have control over our brush shape, our brush size, the stroke method, whether we're drawing by space, and how big that space is going to be. We can increase the spacing with this little slider right here. If I increase that much bigger, it's only going to paint every once in a while. I better pick a different color. So I'm going to dot things down very slowly, or bring that back down to 30. Be much closer together. I have other controls, so draw by dots or draw by line. Yes. As in import them and then start editing. I mean, we can paint with them in texture paint. Hmm. Mm. Yes. I mean, we could paint it on as a stencil in that way. It doesn't have, as far as I know, a layer system that works the same as Photoshop. But if we had a decal, what I do is load in a texture in our texture painting. So actually, I'll go to this window, Control Space to maximize any window you're working in. And under texture, I can load in a texture. And then down in my texture panels, I actually have to open the image from here. So I'll actually do that again. So instead of going to the texture window, I should have just come here first. Texture properties. I'll call this road signs. And we're going to open up, and I included these files up on Brightspace if you wanted to grab them. Some road signs, 1 and 2. And then I'll have this as an image that I can paint the texture in. It's going to paint 10 by 10. You can set it as a brush, and then it's going to start painting, but that's obviously not what we want. If we change to, it's going by view plane, we can paint tiled, and then we'll have to adjust the scale as well because it squashes everything into a square brush. Oh, and I'll change from line draw, stroke, back to space. Now I can paint it, but you see the aspect ratio is a little bit off. And I couldn't find a quick fix for this. Maybe there's an add-on. But about 0.6 on the X seems to get me the correct-ish 1920 by 1080. However, what if we just wanted one of these? Then we'd want to use a stencil. So under texture, mapping tiled, I'll change that to stencil. And then this gives me some weird controls for getting a stencil and painting it like you're painting in graffiti. stencil. And this one has a button for image aspect, which I don't know why the other ones don't. But I click that to make sure, because if I paint right now, there's my stencil. I can hold shift and right click to make it bigger, control and right click to rotate it, turn it how I want. And then just spray paint over in whatever color I want. I'm in white at the moment, so it's going to paint the same color. And that will just stencil just what I painted over onto the model. There it is, sideways. So decal is very, very quick. So yeah, shift and right click to zoom, scale up or down your stencil. And then right click and drag just to move that stencil around. And then just paint over in whatever color. So if I paint it in red, it's going to try and paint it, the whole thing in red. If I paint in blue, well, it's already blue. It's green. And now any of the white parts will come out green. So you can add like tints as you're painting it. Green sign because I painted in green. So one more time, the sequence is to load in, go to texture properties. Texture properties. Create a new brush. I'm going to add a new texture. And by default, it names it from the last one. So yeah, road signs 1 is fine. I'm going to load in a different image. I have another road signs. So to create that new texture, there's probably a button for new. Three, select your image. And then to paint with the stencil, control space to go full screen. Change texture from view plane, where it'll paint like this, to texture, stencil. So change its mapping, texture, stencil. And tile if you just want to paint repeating texture, if you have a seamless texture like wood or rusty metal, paint in tiled. And in the stencil tool, where is my stencil? Oh, there we go. Click image aspect just to get the proper aspect ratio. And then when you're in here, you have the right click tools. Right click to move things around. Shift and right click to scale it up or down. And control and right click to rotate your image. And then if you just want to get back to normal painting, you might be sick of painting in road signs, different colors, just unlink that texture again. It doesn't delete it, it just unlinks it from your brush, current texture. Little X to unlink it. Okay, so that's the box, but obviously the box has UVs already unwrapped for it, and so textures are going to display on it automatically pretty well. And to demonstrate that, let's create another new image. This is going to be a little helper image, and we can test it on any of our models to see how our texturing is looking. So, new image. This one I'm going to call checker and change its generated type to UV grid or color grid. Actually, color grid, yeah. So name it checker. Select color grid. 1024 by 1024. New image. Color grid. And we tested on our model to switch our box text to checker. See, things are pretty nicely spaced. There's no distortion. So we're not going to paint on this grid. We're just going to use it for checking and then switch back. Let's go back to layout and create an irregular shape. Let's create a picture frame. Why not? A picture in a frame. Let's move this out of the way. And add a mesh cube. Let's get into edit mode and make this more irregular. So first I'm going to create an area for the picture to live in this picture frame. Let's use inset faces. Let's go. Inset faces and just inset this front face just a little bit. Remember my operator panel. And then I'm going to inset it again. Just create a recess for that painting to live. But this time I'll say the thickness is 0 and the depth is minus what? Minus 0.1. So a cube with an inset, and then I'll just grab this back face here and bring it closer. Our picture frame is complete. Are you ready? Yeah, we're making Starfield. Yes, sir, Mr. Ubisoft. You got it. Anyway. Now, my object of origin is off because of what I did to my cube. Common problem, you face it all the time. It just means that when I rotate it, it's rotating around this little pointed space. Let's just move our origin back to our geometry. With this little object, set origin. Origin to geometry. Get the center of gravity back to the center. Hey, there we go. Just a little touch up. Now let's look at this with our UV grid on it. So I'll go to Material Preview. We'll need to make a material for this frame. New material. Picture mat. And in the base color, just select image texture again. We take a look at our checker, and it's not too bad until we look at the sides. So even with something as simple as this model, you can see things are getting crushed and squished up here. Because our UV is still set to the standard box mat, the T-shaped fold-out, lowercase t. So what we're going to do is unwrap this, but unwrap this quickly. If I switch over to UV editing mode, hello. Yep. So it's the same one we created, and I just created on the picture frame a new material in the materials tab. Oh, generating it. Yeah, just in our texture paint window, and I'm sure I can probably do it in the UV editing window as well. Just create a new image. Image, new. Then give it a name. I'll call this checker 2. I'll use the other checker. And you can just select color grid in the generated type. Color grid or UV grid. That's the color grid there. Cool. So UV grid is used for the same purpose. Checking if things are distorted. So just another version of that. And then, yeah, I created a material. Picture mat that had the color grid on. With the other checker, you can also see there's stretching going on where I created that slight bit of different geometry. Oh, looking very satanic. And crushing and squishing of these shapes. So we need to unwrap this again just to make sure it's not distorting, because then painting on it, as we paint, our brush stuff will be squished up. So we can just unwrap this in UV editing window right here. Again, that's just an image viewer. If I select all, I can see sort of where my mesh is. See, it's just following the box mat. Another fast way of doing this is to use Smart UV Project or Light Map Pack. Light Map Pack. Let's get this looking correct. If I look at the viewing angle on here, so you should see this edge change. Smart UV Project is a great way for unwrapping objects you don't want to create seams for and aren't actually that complicated. Just keep on default. It's going to limit the angles and try and flatten everything out without creating seams. So there it is. It's packed it out. It's given equal distribution to the front and back. Maybe we'd want to change that. We wanted more texture detail space for the picture part. But we can see no distortion anymore, or at least minimal. Another very robotic version of it is to use Light Map Pack, and that just takes every single individual face. It's a great way of maximizing the use of your texture window because it leaves no wasted space whatsoever. Where was? Oh, just Smart UV Project in your edit mode window. Are you in edit mode? Yeah. So it should be in this window right here after face. No worries. Yeah. Oh yeah, I get you. Different one. Yep. Yes. So you could dissolve that cut back in. So if I created a loop cut right here, go back to solid. And I wanted to get rid of it, I can dissolve that into the mesh with the delete function X. Dissolve edges, so that doesn't delete them, it dissolves them into the mesh. It's gone. Anyway, UV Light Map Pack. So that's what Smart UV Project. Light Map Pack is going to use all of the space, pack everything tightly together. It has caused some distortion here for some reason. It's folding stuff here. Yeah, it's folding things completely flat and square, but they shouldn't be when there's actually an angle going on there. So sometimes useful, sometimes not. But the good thing about these UVs, none of them are destructive. You can always re-UV, re-unwrap. I can go back to Smart UV because that gave me the better result and unwrap that way. And now it's ready for painting. So irregular shapes, we need to unwrap them or they're not going to look right. So I can go back to texture paint. I'm not going to paint on my UV grid. I'm going to create a new image. And 1024 is the default. You can go higher. I'm going to call this paint text. Let's double it up, 2048. So that's just our pixel density, 2048. Make sure to select type blank. So give it a name. Blank, and create the new image, and then load that into our material slot, and we can start painting this painting. Oh, there it is. Back over here, set a checker, select paint text. Now I can start painting this texture the way I want it to be. Okay, so I'm going to load in the crate texture from last week. New image. Great wood. Or 2 weeks back. and control space so I can see this on its own. Okay, and what I want in this case is just to paint the borders and not the face in the middle. We can actually select individual faces with Alt Select. Nope, apparently not.
Sorry, I'm late.
No worries. How's it going?
Good.
Good to hear it.
What are we going over?
Texture painting.
Okay. Is that in Substance Painter or in Blender?
No, in Blender.
Okay.
But we'll be doing similar brush stuff in Substance as well. I could just figure that out. It's the X bird. X. It's edgy and dangerous. Yes, well, there is my wonderful work of art and texture painting. I swear to God, I could select face by face last night. Shift and left click, but it has not worked today. A way of isolating by face, but it is not. It doesn't want to work today. But there's a beautiful piece of art, hand painted. Then the final step when you're finished painting something is to make sure you save that texture out. None of these have been saved, so save the copy, save all images to wherever they're supposed to be. And if you want to use this UV layout in another editor, from the UV editing window, you can just get the layout. Export UV layout, and then you can just bring it to Photoshop and paint it where you want it to be. And I have my layout as a separate image. I could bring that somewhere else. And there's the actual layout. Bring that into Photoshop and just paint it.